I'm Ebs, and I have been teaching yoga since 2012, and I've been doing yoga for longer than that, and I have been a runner for a lot longer than that as well. And I love talking about running. I love talking about yoga. So we have 4 questions today. What, why, how? What is yoga? Most of us are a little bit familiar with what yoga is, but we'll just go over the basics. Why is yoga helpful for runners? Why are we talking about yoga versus just stretching? And then, if I've convinced you, how do you start including it in your routine? And then a little goodie bag at the end, a simple take-home sequence. So, what is yoga? Most of you already know, especially if you've done it. Yoga is a series of poses or postures, always done in a sequence that is intentional and always connected with breath work. It is done for the purpose of promoting a mind-body connection and overall health and wellness. I like to say to my athletes that our goal is to improve how your body feels and how your body functions. Most yoga done outside of India, especially in the West, is not done connected with any sort of Indian philosophy or Indian spirituality. It is done purely for functional benefits, for mental health benefits. I like to liken it to fasting, which is a physical practice that some people do for specific spiritual reasons, some people do for specific health reasons. And doing it for one purpose doesn't necessarily mean that you're automatically doing it for the other purpose. And then, as you know, yoga can come in a variety of formats and styles. We have the types of yoga where you do exactly the same poses in exactly the same sequence every time you go to that class anywhere in the world. You always know what pose is coming next. This is your Ashtanga, this is your Bikram, and a few other styles. And then what's most popular in the West is flow yoga, where you have a series of poses. Some of the same poses always show up, but the instructor can get a little bit creative with the sequencing. There's different themes, different purposes. And then there's heated yoga, where the room is hot and you're supposed to sweat like crazy. And then there's yoga with dumbbells. There is yoga where you sit in a supported stretch for a few minutes at a time and then move at your own pace to another pose. And that's yin yoga. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then, of course, there is the recently popular yoga done with baby goats. So, why is yoga important for runners? When we talk about yoga, the first thing we think about is flexible people. I have people all the time telling me, I can't do yoga, I'm not flexible enough. But those are the people that yoga is for. If you are hypermobile, if you have no problem touching your toes, you may not need yoga, except that we're going to talk about all the other stuff too, because it's not just about mobility, but you get the point that yoga improves flexibility. That's pretty commonly understood. And yoga is focused a lot on the lower body, and so is running. And so that's part of why it is a good match for us as runners. And then there's also improved core strength, improved balance. A lot of the postures, a lot of the standing postures require a lot of your stabilizing muscles in your hips and your lower legs and your feet. It requires a lot of your core, and that can be really beneficial. One of my favorite things to talk about is the foot and ankle integrity, that because you're doing the poses barefoot, you are stretching your feet in a lot of different ways. Your toes can be stretched underneath you. Your heels can be pressing towards the ground, like in downward facing dog. You can stretch your ankles. Some of the poses, your foot is flat on the mat underneath you, so you've got a little bit more ankle stretch along the top of your foot. And then you've got your arch has to activate to help you balance in some of the single leg poses. There's all kinds of things happening that is good for your feet and your ankles. And then all of those things, the improved mobility, the improved core strength and balance, the foot and ankle integrity, all of that helps for injury prevention. And yoga also helps address muscle imbalances. Stretching is good for recovering from workouts, but certain types of yoga also are good for improving sleep quality, which we know sleep is a very important part of recovery. And it can also help improve circulation and improve the blood flow to your muscles. We are going to spend a little bit longer on this last point because we don't often think about how yoga can be beneficial for mental training and race day performance. Sports psychology is its own deep topic. We don't have time to go into a lot of this, but in sports psychology, we talk about the 4 C's of optimal performance: concentration, confidence, composure, and commitment. And so your level of confidence and your level of commitment to the sport or to your event or commitment to your training, yoga can't really help you with that. You have to do other things to work on your confidence and your commitment. But composure or control and your concentration, the mindfulness aspect of yoga can go a long way towards helping with that, because concentration and composure both start with awareness. In sports psychology, concentration is defined as your ability to stay focused on a task for the duration of the event with an appropriate level of intensity, and to quickly refocus your attention whenever it's inevitably broken. That could be concentration on internal stimuli or internal cues, or you may, in your race, you may need to draw your focus away from internal stimuli, internal feedback, and focus on external feedback. You may need to keep your focus on your fueling strategy, or what are the other runners around you doing? Is someone going to take a surge? How am I going to respond to that? Choosing where your focus is going to be intentionally, and then the ability to bring your attention back to that, is something that's practiced in a lot of yoga classes. A lot of times yoga teachers will say, bring your awareness back to your breath. Is your breath still slow and controlled? If it's not, can you slow your breath down? Or we could say, bring your awareness to your spine in this pose. Is there any discomfort in your lower back? If so, we need to change the pose in this way, or you need to back out of the pose. And so bringing our awareness with intention where we want it to go, and that practice of bringing it back, is helpful on race day. And then composure, that self-control aspect, is a lot about managing our response to things. And inevitably things will happen on race day that are outside of our control. What mindfulness helps us do is to be aware of our reaction to that, to watch the thoughts and reactions that arise, and then distance ourselves from that and choose how we want to respond instead. And composure is also connected to the appropriate level of activation. So doing things that help you, if you're overly wound up, overly activated and nervous before a race, being aware of that and doing things that help you calm down, or the inverse if that ever happens. For example, if there are 2 runners in a race, hypothetically they have the same amount of training and fitness level, and they both encounter this obstacle, maybe a strong headwind or a really unexpectedly brutal uphill segment. The one that has the better mental skill and mental training is going to handle that obstacle better. Maybe the thought arises that this headwind is going to ruin my race. There's no way I can bike, for example, in a triathlon, into a headwind for 56 miles. Or I hate hills might be running through your head. But being able to allow that thought, notice that thought, separate yourself from it, and then choose how you want to respond to it. You can replace those thoughts with, well, maybe your bike time is not going to be as fast in a headwind, but what else can you control? Or reminding yourself, everyone is biking into this headwind. Or you can replace the thought of like, I hate hills with, I've trained for hills, or I'm pretty strong at hills, or whatever you might want to replace those thoughts with. So that's really, for me, one of the most interesting ways that yoga can help runners. And this brings us to the next why, which is, why are we talking about yoga versus just stretching? One of the big reasons is what we just talked about, that mindfulness training, which we don't get in just a series of stretches. You could have a series of stretches and a dedicated meditation practice, which can also help with these things. But the easiest way is just to combine it all into a yoga session and have that practice with your awareness, your mindfulness, and get the other benefits at the same time. And then yoga is good for stress and anxiety reduction in a way that just holding a series of stretches alone is not. A big part of that has to do with the breath work. Slow, controlled inhales and exhales activates the parasympathetic nervous system, tells your body we're safe, we're relaxed, we don't need this much cortisol, and helps you reduce that anxiety and that stress. If you want to just stretch and do slow breathing, that can help, but you also then don't get the other aspects like the barefoot aspect, which I keep coming back to because I've learned this the hard way. The 2 times that I've had significant foot injuries, most recently plantar fasciitis, they have come on at times, and this is not the only reason, but it also coincides with times in my life when, for various reasons, the amount of yoga that I do is dramatically reduced. And I do think that they are connected because doing yoga barefoot is so good for your foot health, ankle mobility, range of motion in your toes, and all of that, which can be helpful to prevent injury. It can be helpful for your running form. If you're a swimmer, it can be helpful for your swim form. And then lastly, balance work. Except for some styles like yin yoga, most yoga styles, you're asking your body to stabilize while in motion from one pose to the next in a way that is useful in sports like running, where that's exactly what you're asking your body to do, is to stabilize while you're in motion. So if I've convinced you and you want to add more yoga into your running routine, here is how you can get started. A fantastic option is attend a guided yoga class in person. There are just things that an in-person experience can offer where doing your own sequence or the other ways that we're going to talk about just can't offer. There are so many options out there as far as where to take a yoga class and who to take it with and what kind of style. I do want you to do your research beforehand. Think about what kind of yoga experience you're looking for. When you're looking at a yoga class, read the description of the style. And not always possible to know a lot about the yoga teacher in advance, but there are different styles, different personalities out there that can suit you. If you are not as interested in the type of yoga that is a little bit more immersive, maybe they have incense, maybe they have people chanting Om Shanti. If you're not as interested in that type of yoga, start with a gym or a fitness center where the yoga classes are a little bit more pared down, a little bit more functional. And if you are interested in a more immersive yoga experience, you could try classes at a yoga studio. And they have a lot of those other things. If you are looking to include yoga in your running routine in a way that is most beneficial, I would say stay away from Ashtanga, Bikram, Kundalini yoga, and Yin yoga to start out with. Stay away from yoga with dumbbells. I'm fine if you want to do yoga with baby goats. So Bikram and Ashtanga will demand a lot of flexibility from you. Yin yoga, it's all seated and there's not as much of a flow element. So it feels very nice, but it just doesn't have a lot of the same benefits of core work, stability work, balance work, and barefoot, foot and ankle integrity work that we've talked about. So maybe do some flow yoga or beginner yoga, basic yoga classes. Okay, next option, because attending an in-person class takes time and money that as athletes, we don't often have a lot of spare time or spare money, then the next best option is follow along with a guided class online. And again, there's so many options out there. I like to point people to Yoga with Adriene on YouTube. She should pay me for how many times that I've sent people her way, but she's earned it. She does a good job. She has all kinds of classes, 20 minutes, an hour, beginner yoga, advanced yoga, yoga for sleep, yoga for your hips, yoga for spine. She's really knowledgeable. She has smart sequencing and good cueing in a way that brings in the mindfulness aspect without a lot of fluff. And then a yoga instructor that has an online presence that I really like her style. It's similar to Adriene's, is an instructor named Fiji McAlpine. A lot of her videos are on doyogawithme.com, which used to be free. I've just noticed as I was preparing this that it is no longer free. I don't know how much it costs, but they do have a free trial. Lastly, and perhaps the best option because it has the least barriers to entry. All you need is yourself and yoga mat and some time, is to do your own sequence at home. And so it takes a little bit of experience to know what to do or what feels good or what will address the issues going on in your body. So maybe some online yoga classes first if you're truly new to yoga, or an in-person yoga class. Maybe twice a week, 20 minutes if you don't have a lot of time. If you have long time to do longer can be good, more times can be good. All you need is yourself and a yoga mat and a quiet corner. This takes away any sort of pressure to make a perfect shape with your body in the poses. In my yoga classes, when I'm in person, we talk about we're not here to make perfect shapes with your body in these poses. These poses have a purpose, and that shape, to attain that purpose, can look different from person to person. And so when you're doing it by yourself, there's less pressure to have your leg completely straight. If everyone else in the room has a straight leg, but your hamstrings don't work that way, you can bend your knee comfortably at home, no self-consciousness. If you try a pose and your joints are not happy, there's pressure in a class to do it anyway. At home, you can just skip it. So when you are doing your own yoga session at home, there are some things that I always want you to think about. Do it barefoot. You can wear socks. Socks will slide around on a yoga mat. They do have grippy socks. Always include mindfulness, even as simple as just focusing on your breath. Practice bringing your attention back to your breath. Slow your breath down. I like to remind people that your attention should be on your breath, on your body, and on your mat. So especially if you're in a yoga class with other people, try not to worry about the other mats and the other bodies. Just focus on how your body is feeling on your mat. Because in life, we ignore things that are happening in our bodies. If you are sitting at your desk for a long time and all of a sudden you might realize my back hurts, and it has been hurting for a while, but I've been focused on my work. That awareness to check in with your body, that little asterisk on this and the next one is if your joints allow it. So pay attention to the signals that your body is giving you. If your joints are happy, always include a spinal twist. Twists can be really good for the spine. They can be balancing for the nervous system. They can be relaxing. A lot of us carry tension in the muscles in our back. It can be kind of stretching, resetting for the muscles in our back. So a really good option is lying down. At the very end of your yoga session, do just a spinal twist each way while you're lying down. And then if your joints are happy, include a bridge pose every time, just because bridge pose can be so beneficial to so many things, opening up the front of your body, opening up the hips, the chest, and then strengthening through the back body. And most of us, it's the opposite. We're closed in the front and a little bit weaker in the back. But do pay attention to how your knees feel. Make sure you've got the form down. Pay attention to how your back feels. Try and include a balance pose as often as you can, just because it's good for you. You are challenging those structures in your body, those muscles in your body that help you stay upright. And so we need to do it. And then related to these, the last thing I'll say on my always list is always respect your body's limits. Briefly, this is because yoga is not without injury. One of the most common injuries in yoga is a strained hamstring or a torn hamstring, particularly by men who don't have the flexibility in their hamstring, but they have the strength to muscle past their natural limits in their hamstrings. And so listen to your body and respect your body's limits. Gently challenge them. We're going to do things that maybe just gently challenge your range of motion or gently challenge your balance, but pay attention to what your limits are now and respect those. There is a lot more. I would love to have a 20-minute session with each person so that where we're doing yoga, so that I could tell you all the things about all of these poses and how to do them so that we achieve the purpose of these poses. If you are newer to yoga, you will have to look up some of these poses. Just remember, when you look them up, that is not necessarily the exact shape that you have to make. This is what we're going towards. This is the shape that our body is moving in that direction. The best time is any time that it works for you. However, if you have flexibility to do it when you want to, it can feel good after a run, but that's not when I would necessarily recommend it. I would say mostly because, well, for one thing, we're sweaty after a run, and that's harder to do things on a yoga mat. But also because after a run, usually that's the time that we have, and we may not have a lot of time to do extra work then. Or if we do, we may want to do foam rolling or something that's more immediately beneficial. If you have the choice, I would say do yoga at other times. When you have 20 minutes, 30 minutes where you can really put yourself somewhere quiet. If you can, put your pets in another room, or maybe your kids are occupied, your roommate is occupied, and you can just really reap the benefits of your practice, not being in a hurry, not being interrupted, and have your time. Some people very much prefer to do yoga in silence, and there are some yoga studios where like that's part of the appeal. But I think that listening to music can be really beneficial for yoga practice. First of all, you enjoy it. You pick something that you like. It can put you in the right headspace. It can help you stay longer if you're happy with, listening to some good music. And depending on the music, it can either help you slow down or kind of pep you up a little bit, whatever music you want. I don't think it has to be like slow instrumental music. That's a popular choice, but I don't think it has to be that either. I think for a lot of my yoga classes, I have like slow rock music, so it's whatever you enjoy.